What do weightlifting shoes do and which ones should you buy? What are the best push, pull, and leg accessory exercises for Olympic weightlifters? And how can you lock in when you lose motivation? In this week's episode of the Last Set Best Set podcast, Coach Calvin and I dive deep answering these questions and more. And if you want your question answered, then make sure to check out the link in the description below. Welcome back to the Last Set Best Set podcast. I'm Coach Brian. I'm the owner of Big Ben Strength, and I've been coaching Olympic lifting for the last 10 years now.
Hey guys, it's Coach Calvin. I've been lifting on my own here for about 3 years, and I'm current captain of Lindenwood University's weightlifting program.
And today we've got some questions that you guys submitted to us on social media, but if you want your questions answered, then make sure to click the Google form link in the description below. Question number 1 comes from Jasmine2 Enriquez, who asks, what is your favorite weightlifting shoe? She says that she uses the cast iron weightlifting shoe, but wanted to get a little bit of an idea of like what we use. So first, let's talk about a little bit what a weightlifting shoe does. If you're not familiar, a weightlifting shoe does a few things. It elevates your heel slightly so that we can keep our torso a little bit more upright in the bottom of the squat and not have to rely too heavily on our own ankle mobility, though we still need to have that. But it makes it easier to get into a full depth squat and keep your torso upright. The other benefit of it is the heel is really solid, so it's a stable platform to push down into, which makes it a lot easier to just create power in both the squat and the pull, and rather than like trying to push into a big old cushy shoe. You're not going to get that much power out of it. You're going to mostly just sink into the shoe. So that's what the weightlifting shoe is mostly for. And there's a couple different types of shoes here. You want to go over some of those shoe types?
Yeah, absolutely. And a note on the squishy shoes as well. Like, I don't know if you've ever done Olympic lifting or squatting, maybe Brian, in like a real squishy shoe. But yeah, it'll totally mess with your balance, especially if you're used to those harder soled shoes. I remember one time in high school, high school was the Wild West with weightlifting. And I actually did like a 405 back squat in some Nike Air Max 270s, which if you're familiar with those, like they just have like, they're just an entire air bubble as the back of the shoe.
That's
Um,
incredible.
so yeah, that's the only kind of thing you could do in high school. Like I bet I couldn't even do that now. I'd like fall over, but some different styles of shoes that I see around and that I think are most common are going to be the Nikes are pretty much some of the most popular style of shoes, as well as lots of people lately are wearing the tier shoes. So now what I use personally is the Nike Ramaleo 2, and I believe that's what you use as well, right, Brian?
Yeah, same.
And then there's also they don't make those anymore. So if you do buy them, they're going to be, somebody who
They're going
had
to
them
be,
sitting around for a while. Maybe they're used.
or they're going to be like bright neon green and the size 4.5, and that's pretty much it.
Yeah. Unless you're wearing size 15 or something, you might be out of luck in finding a decent quality pair of those for a reasonable price. So me and Brian are lucky that we have pairs of ours. But the Ramaleo 4 is also a very solid shoe. I know some weightlifting, purists, really say like, the Ram 2 there's nothing like it. I'd say I agree slightly, but the Ram 4 is really not that much different. And then when we look at picking a weightlifting shoe, the big thing you're going to want to think about is the heel height, or really the drop from the heel to the toe. So how much lift is it giving you on the back of your foot? For the Ram 4, that's going to be 0.78 inches. For the Ram 2, 0.75 inches. And then when we look at these tier shoes, we see the tier lifter 1 has a 0.82 inch drop. And the new tier 4 is like elite shoe that they just came out with. It's a really high price point shoe. So it's about $350, I believe. That has a 1-inch heel. So consider, what mobility restrictions you might have, or if you have excess mobility in your ankles, you probably don't need a high shoe. You might go with something like Adidas or Asics, who typically are a lot cheaper actually and have lower heel height. But I'd say, yeah, the most common ones I see are those Ramaleos and then the tier shoes.
Yeah.
And it's important to note that the tier shoes really focus on their wide toe box. So if you're someone who feels like you have like caveman feet, Like you might need to go with the tier shoe, although for most people, I'd say it probably doesn't matter and doesn't make that big a difference. It's a really good marketing thing, but unless you really have wide feet, then you probably aren't, hurting your feet too much by wearing normal shoes.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, there's not much of a difference from like 0.78 inches to 0.75 inches for the weightlifting shoe, but generally you want something that's got a little bit of a higher heel height if you don't have great ankle mobility. And generally, I've just found that the higher the heel height, the better. For me personally, I just prefer that. But I know some people really like a lower heel height if they have great ankle mobility. If they've just got shorter legs, it's a little bit easier for them. So different shoes for different goals there. But yeah, hopefully that answers your question there. This episode of the podcast is brought to you by the Weekend Winter Training Camp here in Tallahassee from December 27th through the 29th. You'll get coaching from me for double-day workouts, 2 incredible max-out sessions, and a sauna and ice bath workshop presented by our friends at Midtown Medical. Click the link in the description below to register and use code LASTSETPOD to save $50 on your order. All right, back to the episode. So question number 2 comes from SKNAZ18, who asks, what are your accessory recommendations? So you want to cover what an accessory exercise is?
Yeah, so in the context of Olympic weightlifting, an accessory exercise can be thought of kind of as anything that's not a snatch or a clean and jerk. So that you might include this as snatch pulls, clean pulls, any squatting, pressing movement. Now, usually in my training, I break it down into an Olympic block, which includes Olympic lifting and the pulls, a strength block, which includes any kind of squatting, deadlifting, or pressing, as in strict press and bench press as like main strength movements. And then everything else after that is accessories. So there's a few ways you could look at it, but in general, just anything that's not that snatch or clean and jerk variations.
Yeah. And if you're doing weightlifting training, like I know most people will consider a squat an accessory, or I guess weightlifting purists will consider like a squat an accessory to the Olympic lifts, but like that's a necessity. That needs to be in your programming no matter what. It should never not be in your training. So I don't personally consider that an accessory, even though it technically would be. So here's how I kind of think about accessory exercises. This is something that I break down in my free accessories guide, which you can find linked in the description below. I categorize accessories on a spectrum between either complementary or supplementary. So complementary accessory exercise is any exercise that directly contributes to improvement in the snatch, clean, or the jerk, because it trains a muscle group or movement pattern that is similar to the snatch, clean, or jerk. So typically any squatting exercise is going to be that way. Any sort of pulling exercise will be like that, and any sort of pressing exercise is going to be like that. Whereas a supplementary accessory exercise is any exercise that fills a hole that normal weightlifting training doesn't. So we are typically squatting a lot in our training program. So that means that hinging movement patterns are probably something that we need to include a little bit more in there. Now, some people may do hinging all the time, but that would be a supplementary exercise. Another example of that would be like we don't really do any rotational exercises in the snatch or the clean and jerk. So including some sort of rotation may be a good idea for your training program. But again, that would be supplementary. It fills the holes in your training after you've already done the most important stuff, which is the complementary accessory work. So I figured, why don't we go ahead and go over and just give our top 3 accessory exercises. We'll give 1 push exercise, 1 pull exercise, and 1 leg exercise. And these are assuming that you're already doing the 7 big snatch or the 7 big strength exercises for Olympic lifting, which I have made a video on previously. So yeah, what's your number 1 here for a push exercise?
So my push exercise is the strict press. I pretty much think you kind of got to be doing strict presses if you're doing weightlifting. I find that there's not a huge correlation between those and your Olympic lifts. Like you'll see some people that can jerk 190 kilos, but they can only strict press 85.
I'm pretty sure I saw Carlos Nassar fail an 80 kilo strict press like double or something like that,
Wow.
which is pretty crazy because I am fairly certain I've done that. but I have not clean and jerked 226 kilos. So
Yeah. So,
yet.
but I still like those, especially keeping you healthy and working on your pressing and overhead positions a little more. It's a good exercise to keep in there.
Yeah, I love the strict press. It's personally one of my favorite exercises to do. For this one, I had the dumbbell bench as a push exercise. I included this in there because it's a supplementary, so we don't really do a whole lot of it in normal training, and I think the chest is generally pretty neglected by a lot of weightlifters. So it's a good one for building up some more just mass in the upper body. It's great, and it works a larger group of muscles than like overhead pressing does, in my opinion. Um, and so that is one of the reasons I've also found a lot of people who just like lack stability in the bottom of the snatch, assuming their technique is good and the bar path is really solid. The dumbbell bench can really help give you a little bit more front to back stability, if you, as opposed to like if you don't have any chest strength at all. So that was why I popped that one in there. What's your number two, your row exercise or your pull exercise?
Yeah, I went with a seal row. So I set these up on a bench, and I usually use the barbell. That's how it's easiest to do here. If you're in more of a commercial gym, you might use dumbbells and put your chest onto a bench, incline bench. But yeah, these are great for building your upper back. Upper back is super super important in weightlifting, but we're usually not doing a lot of slow or eccentric things that might build muscle in that upper back. We're usually just doing concentric motions. So we want to definitely, like I'd say, your focus with the dumbbell bench too. If you're trying to build muscle, if you're trying to gain weight, especially, these are really good exercises. The seal row, dumbbell bench, for throwing into your accessory program.
Absolutely, yeah. And with any isolation exercise, controlled eccentrics, especially in weightlifting, is great because we don't do a whole lot of that outside of it. And it's an easier way to build a lot of muscle. So you can do dumbbell rows, or you can do really slow, or I'm sorry, you can do seal rows, or you can do really slow seal rows with a slow eccentric, and you'll get more bang for your buck. So you might as well. And so that's my exercise number two here. The pull exercise is just a heavy dumbbell row. I like it. I like it a lot. I think the dumbbell row. I've never seen anybody who's super strong not be able to dumbbell row insanely heavy weights. It's kind of a universal exercise for like strongmen, bodybuilders, powerlifters, weightlifters. Like anybody who's strong tends to be really strong in the dumbbell row as well. So that's one of my favorites. And it's also a single arm exercise, which is good to include in there because we do a lot of overhand grip, two arm exercises. Mix it up a little bit, keep a single arm, maybe do a neutral grip for this, or even like a supinated grip is good to throw in there too. So that's mine there. What's your leg exercise here?
Something I put right back in my program more recently is the Nordic curl. So in the past, when I was doing track sprinting, I had dealt with a lot of hamstring strains. And something that I kind of realized about myself was that my quads were just so much stronger than the back of my body, than my hamstrings. And I love the Nordic curl because of its like maximal eccentric focus. Most people can't do a Nordic curl starting from the bottom and just curl themselves up. So we're overloading the eccentric in order to produce some really strong adaptations in the back of your leg and the hamstrings there. So this is a really good one to throw in if you think your quads are probably a little stronger than your hamstrings, which I would say is the case for a lot of weightlifters.
Yeah, absolutely. And the Nordic curl is so hard. It's such a great exercise too because it's you could really make a lot of progress on it pretty quickly too just by keeping them in the rotation once or twice a week. They're a great exercise. My leg exercise here is the snatch grip RDL. This is something that I've been including in people's programs a little bit more in my own training, and we're using it a lot in the team programs. It is a game changer hamstring exercise, partially because with the snatch grip you can go for a bigger range of motion than you can with a neutral grip, unless you are standing on top of something. But you can do small little things that really take the hamstrings on this to another level. So just slightly looking up and arching your back a lot, you will get a huge stretch on the hamstrings. It is crazy. And it's easy gains. Like you're probably going to start week one with something pretty light, and you'll be able to build up in weight on this pretty quickly every single week if you've never done these in your training. So I would recommend the Snatch Grip RDL for sure. Do you have anything else on accessories you wanted to cover?
No, that's it.
Sweet. All right. Question number 3 comes from Xander K04, who asks how to lock in when you lose motivation. And this was actually we probably got like 4 different people asking this question, which is it's a great question because I think a lot of people struggle with it. I know personally, I absolutely struggle with it. A couple things that I wanted to go over on this because there's not a one size fits all approach to fixing your loss of motivation. So, first, I think it's important to understand that it's not normal to be motivated all the time. That's okay. Don't expect to be motivated all the time. Just use motivation as a tool to push harder on the days that you have it. Um, Instead, and I know this is cliche, but everybody says it, it's be motivate. You don't need to be motivated. You just need to be disciplined. You need to do what you can to make it a part of your daily life. And if you can make it such a normal part of your life that it is not even something you would think about skipping the gym or going into training, it makes it a lot easier when you don't have the motivation because it's something that you just do. It's a part of your life. It's like taking your dog on a walk. You're going to go do it every single day because you have to. It's the same idea with training. Some of the things that I found help me personally is not trying to bully my way through to getting into the gym. I just try and make it easier to do it. So I set up times where I am meeting friends to go train at the gym, so that I've got a little bit of an accountability person that I'm responsible to go to the gym. So that one, I'm helping them with their training, but they're also helping me with mine. Making it easy is really helpful. With that, try and find gyms that are really close to you so that it's not a hassle to try and even get to the gym. Um, do everything that you can. Know what your workout's going to be for the next day, so you're already planning ahead, so you don't have to think about other things on the way there. Um, and along with that, I think that there's one or two things here. Um, Learning to love training is the thing that will help keep you going. If all you love is the PR, or if all you love is the heavy day, then it's going to be really hard because most days of training are not PR days or are not heavy days of training. So you need to learn to love the learning process, love every aspect that comes with training. So loving videoing your lifts and breaking them down a little bit in between each set, loving seeing the progress in your technique in some different way, or loving figuring out the puzzle of what you need to do to get a little bit better. And I think one thing that really helps with that is just having a coach who can help you with that, because a coach is also, or should, hold you accountable in some way if you're not training, but they're not going to do all the work. They can't go to the gym for you. So having a coach really does make a difference for keeping you accountable, but also helping you stay up to date with knowing what you need to work on so that there's always something to do. Um, and then I would say finally, like, journal. I think that journaling is really helpful. Journal on why you're lacking motivation. A lot of the time people think that they're lacking motivation, but really they're just getting to the point where it's kind of hard, and you maybe have been used to training being easy for too long. So I would say that journaling on why that is the case will probably help you get down to the root of it. And if you're not sure, just keep asking yourself why. But I know you actually don't really struggle with motivation. You want to talk about this a little bit because it might help people think about it from a different perspective.
This question is always is really hard for me because, and I'd say it's definitely a more common question I get. Oh, how do you stay so motivated? I'm just like, I'm just like, what? Like, what do you mean? Like, I mean, and I don't want to sound like, oh, I'm just so locked in all the time. I've never, like, that's not even what it is. It's just with the way that I feel about weightlifting, like what my why is behind weightlifting, like there's just never been any option other than just getting better and just keep working on getting better. Um, and it is kind of a combination of a lot of the factors Brian just mentioned there, um, like having that accountability from my team and my coach. Like if I get to training late, we're in trouble. We have to we have like punishments. Like we have to push a plate on the turf, like a 20 kg plate for every minute we're late. We got to go down and back. Like by pushing this plate, it's like hard to do. So it's like I don't have an option like about whether I go to training on Monday or not. Like I mean, if I'm sick, that's one thing, but I don't just get to like choose. Like I have to. Like I made this choice when I committed to, do a college sport. Like, and you can kind of take that own approach in your training. Like, just say if you're gonna work out and you're gonna start this program, you will do it every Monday. Like I will rest every Wednesday. It's okay to move your rest day to Thursday though, if you need to do that. But like, having that routine built in, and having, like I am not going to miss a day of this program unless something crazy happens. Like that attitude needs to be approached if you really do care about getting better. It all comes back to that why. If it's not actually that important to you to be good at weightlifting, that's okay. Like there's kind of this misconception that everybody has to be trying to be this like top tier athlete, super elite level athlete, try and go to the Olympics or something. Like it's okay to not do that. It's okay to just enjoy other parts of training, the environment you're in, the people that do weightlifting. You don't have to try and become like the best athlete like physically possible for you to be to enjoy the sport. So that's important too. Look back to your why. Why am I doing this? Like some really great reasons. You're going to be a lot more healthier as you age into your 30s, 40s, 50s if you're doing weightlifting, compared to if you're not. Like, you want to throw your grandchild in the air. Yeah, like, there's a lot of really great benefits to doing weightlifting that aren't just, winning some competition or whatever.
Yeah, 100%. So hopefully, guys, that answered your question there. And if you do need somebody to help hold you accountable, then click the link in the description below and check out some coaching. I don't have any spots available for one-to-one coaching, but Calvin does. And if you need it, then we've also got a team program. It's a little bit cheaper, a little bit easier to afford. You still get video review and still get programming. So check both of those out in the link in the description below. We're going to go ahead and move into the rapid fire questions here. So first question, what is the cause of the hips rising early in the first pull? This one comes from Fit Eric Jan, 73 kilos.
So most people, when you see their hips rising early, they just don't know how to use the legs in the first pull of the lift. A lot of people come from other strength backgrounds, other exercise backgrounds where they've maybe been doing deadlifts before this, or even if you have done nothing, it might be what feels a little more natural when you first start off weightlifting is pulling with your back from the floor there. But good weightlifters eventually learn how to use their legs off the floor, um, and continuing to, yeah, just push with their legs really through the whole lift. So the best weightlifters you're going to see are going to be using their legs off the floor, and they're going to be using them in the middle portion, and of course, during the catch as well.
Using the legs is really the biggest issue. Like if you're not using the legs at all, it's much easier for your hips to rise too quickly. This is something I personally struggled with for years in my own training. The things that really helped me out with this, a couple things. One, cueing, just thinking about leading the pull with the chest. So leading with my chest up the whole time helped me a lot with that. Pushing with the legs, that was another thing that really helped with that. As far as stuff you can do in your training to do this, to work on this, I think one underappreciated tool is just using a static start. I think a dynamic start is a great way to get a lot more power, but if your dynamic start is leading to an inconsistent start position, then a static start's a great way to work on this. So get into your set start position, hold that for a second or two, and then start the lift. when you're working on your technique. That is a great way to make sure that the hips aren't rising too fast. You can also incorporate a pause 1 inch off the floor where you break the bar off the ground and then you complete the rest of the lift. That is another great way to work on that, and you can really feel your legs working hard to do the first pull. So that would be something I would recommend. Now, along with this, like we talked about not using your legs, that may just be a strength issue. Maybe you just have weak legs. So if that's the case, then you might just need to push the squat and get stronger legs. Um, you can do that through doing pulls and through doing squats. So if your legs generally get stronger, it may be easier to have better technique. Some other things we could do pulls. Floating pulls are great. Touch and go pulls where you barely let the plates touch the ground. Kind of almost think of it like making the plates kiss the ground before you come back up. Those are all great ways to help work on this. And if you guys are struggling with your technique, there's a Discord linked in the description below that you can just send your videos in, and I'll be in there giving you guys technique tips. So if you need that, you don't have a coach or you don't have somebody looking at your lifts, you guys can check that out at the link in the description below. Next question here. What is the best thing that's happened to you since starting weightlifting? This one comes from Jesus Sanquiz on Instagram.
Absolutely. For me, it's definitely related to our team environment here at Lindenwood. There's no better feeling I've had in weightlifting than winning our first team championship. It wasn't really expected that we were going to win, so we were kind of underdogs on that first one. But we were able to come out on top, and it was just a really great feeling. It felt like, we all worked and did it together. And doing that, the real important part is the relationships that were built through that process. That goes into our second team championship win that we won the next year as well. And this comes back to a really important topic, which for me is that your time as an athlete is not going to last forever. Maybe we're competing in weightlifting until we're 28, 29, like seriously. And of course you can compete as a masters athlete, into your 30s and even 40s, even 50s, but that time when you're pursuing some greater goal, that might be, qualifying for an international meet, doing XYZ, like winning medals at whatever competition. Your peak weightlifting performance is usually seen around the ages of 26 to 28 or so, your peak strength. And so you just have to know that time isn't going to last forever, and that you won't always be that athlete that has time to just dedicate like a lot of time to being an athlete. You're going to have a family. You're going to have, a spouse. And so there's one quote that I really like, and it says, "The idea is not to live forever, but to build something that will." So that's a lot of what we've done here at Lindenwood. Like, I know this program is going to last far beyond me and the effect I had on it personally just by competing as an athlete, or whatever I might have done as a captain. But I know we built it up and built up our reputation and our name that it's going to keep doing what it did for me for many other kids in the future. So that's really cool.
Dude, that motivated me so hard. That was great. I would say probably for me the best thing, man, I go back and forth. I think the Team USA experience that I had a couple years ago with an athlete, we qualified for Junior Pan Ams, and competed in Colombia. That was such a cool experience, because it was, I mean, like I'm like rooming with like some of the best coaches in the country, getting to talk to other coaches about what they're doing and how they're growing their program, and seeing all these incredible athletes compete. And I think especially at the junior level, it's really cool because you get to see basically like what the future of USA weightlifting is going to look like. And Hampton was there, and he crushed it. And a couple years later, he like won the first Olympic medal in 50 years on the men's side. It was like truly, it was really cool. So I think that that's probably my best experience in weightlifting. But I think that it's also just the little day-to-day stuff too, of hearing people like that guy that commented on our video the other day, from India, who said that he's been like watching my videos, and now he's like a provincial state champion in weightlifting, and like using the guides and stuff like that. So that I think is probably another really close second, is just seeing the impact of I guess the work that I'm doing is probably the best thing for me. So yeah, I think that would probably be my thing. So yeah, I think why don't we go ahead and leave it there.
Thanks, guys. Go ahead and check us out. My Instagram is Calvin Lackey 81kg. And what's yours, Brian?
You guys can find me at Big Ben Strength on YouTube, Instagram, and TikTok. We'll catch you guys on the next one. Bye.
Bye.